The British monarchy is often viewed through the lens of ceremony, tradition, and public symbolism. Crowns, palaces, state occasions, these are the images most frequently associated with royal life. Yet long before a future monarch reaches the throne, long before the weight of a crown is ever felt, there exists an intricate system of rules designed to shape, discipline, and control those born into the line of succession. These rules are not decorative traditions, they are instruments of institutional stability. The modern monarchy does not rely solely on popularity or public affection. It relies on predictability, continuity, and the careful management of authority across generations. Every royal heir, from early childhood onward, becomes subject to a quiet but highly structured code of conduct. Some of these rules appear ceremonial on the surface. Others, less visible to the public, form the foundation of how royal authority is preserved. The enforcement of these rules is not arbitrary. They are maintained by a network of palace officials, constitutional advisors, private secretaries, and senior members of the royal household. Together, they form a framework intended to prepare an heir not simply to inherit privilege, but to inherit responsibility within one of the most scrutinized institutions in modern public life. For viewers accustomed to seeing royal heirs smiling during public engagements or attending state ceremonies, the reality behind the scenes is far more disciplined. The preparation for monarchy begins decades before the throne is ever within reach. It begins with rules that govern education, travel, personal behavior, public speech, and even the most routine elements of daily life. Some of these rules are centuries old. Others have evolved quietly in response to modern media, political sensitivity, and the pressures of public scrutiny. Together, they form what might best be described as the Royal Code of Preparation. One of the earliest and most quietly enforced expectations concerns how royal heirs are educated. Unlike many public figures who develop personal identities first and public roles later, royal children are raised with the understanding that their personal development is inseparable from institutional duty. Their education must balance intellectual development with constitutional awareness. Historically, royal heirs were educated almost entirely within palace walls, guided by private tutors and senior courtiers. The purpose was control. Palace education allowed the monarchy to carefully shape the worldview of the future sovereign, insulating them from influences considered politically or socially destabilizing. In the modern era, this rule has softened, but not disappeared. Heirs now attend schools and universities, often among the general public. Yet even in these environments, their academic paths are quietly shaped by the palace. Subjects such as history, politics, and constitutional governance receive particular emphasis. This is not simply academic interest. It is preparation for a role that requires an intimate understanding of the British state. Private secretaries and royal advisors monitor this process carefully. Educational choices are not made solely for personal ambition. They are evaluated through a broader question: will this knowledge help sustain the monarchy? Failure to follow this expectation does not result in public punishment, but it carries consequences within the institution. An heir perceived as intellectually unprepared risks losing confidence among advisors, ministers, and senior royal figures. In a constitutional monarchy, where political neutrality must be maintained, intellectual discipline becomes a form of legitimacy. Another rule, less visible but equally important, governs travel during childhood and early adulthood. Royal heirs cannot move through the world as freely as ordinary citizens. From an early age, the question of succession introduces practical concerns that shape even family decisions. One of the most long-standing precautions involves the separation of key heirs during travel. Traditionally, senior members of the royal line avoid flying together in the same aircraft once a certain age is reached. The reasoning is simple: Though rarely discussed publicly, the continuity of the monarchy must never depend on a single moment of risk. This practice is not codified in statute, but it is strongly advised within palace protocol. Aviation accidents, however rare, present a theoretical threat to the line of succession. By separating heirs during travel, the institution reduces the possibility of sudden disruption. In earlier generations, this precaution was observed with strict discipline. Younger heirs often travelled separately from their parents, sometimes under the supervision of senior palace staff. In recent decades, the rule has occasionally been relaxed during early childhood, particularly for practical family reasons. Yet as heirs grow older, the principle quietly reasserts itself. What appears to the public as routine travel planning is, behind the scenes, a matter of institutional safeguarding. The monarchy cannot afford unpredictability in its line of succession. Every journey, every itinerary, every aircraft seating arrangement is quietly evaluated through that lens. Alongside education and travel lies another expectation, one that begins shaping royal heirs long before they enter public life. It concerns speech. Unlike elected leaders, royal heirs do not possess political freedom of expression. Their words carry symbolic authority, even when spoken casually. A single remark, misinterpreted or poorly judged, can trigger political controversy. For this reason, royal children are introduced early to the discipline of controlled communication. Public speaking training begins years before formal engagements ever take place. Advisors, communication staff, and senior household officials gradually guide heirs in understanding what can be said and what must never be said. The boundary is clear. Royal heirs must remain politically neutral. This rule lies at the heart of the constitutional monarchy. The sovereign reigns, but does not govern. Political decisions belong to elected officials, not the crown. If an heir publicly expresses strong political opinions, the monarchy risks appearing partisan. Such a perception would threaten the delicate balance that allows the institution to function above the political arena. And so, from a young age, royal heirs are taught to speak with caution, restraint, and precision. Yet these early rules, education, travel, speech, represent only the beginning of a far deeper system of discipline. As royal heirs grow older, the expectations placed upon them become far more complex. Because preparation for the throne does not simply involve knowledge or etiquette. It requires submission to an institution that, in many ways, must always come before the individual. From adolescence onward, royal heirs encounter a new category of rules, those that regulate how they exist in public life. At first glance, these rules appear ceremonial, almost theatrical. Yet beneath the polished surface lies a carefully managed system designed to protect the monarchy from instability. One of the most persistent expectations concerns appearance and presentation. Royal heirs do not possess complete freedom over how they dress, particularly during official engagements. Clothing choices are rarely spontaneous. They are quietly coordinated through palace staff, often with advice from senior household officials who understand the symbolic language of royal presentation. Clothing in royal life communicates hierarchy, dignity, and continuity. An heir who appears careless in dress risks projecting carelessness toward the institution itself. For this reason, young royals are introduced early to a principle that governs nearly every public appearance: personal style must never overshadow the role. This expectation is not enforced through public reprimand. Instead, it is maintained through an internal culture of guidance. Private secretaries and senior aides advise on appropriate attire for state events, religious ceremonies, and diplomatic engagements. Over time, heirs learn that clothing within the monarchy functions less as personal expression and more as institutional uniform. Alongside appearance, comes another discipline that shapes royal behavior in public settings: physical protocol. From childhood, heirs are taught a detailed system of gestures and conduct that governs how they greet dignitaries, walk during ceremonies, and interact with the public. Even the simplest movements carry meaning. The order in which royals enter a room reflects their place in the line of succession. The positioning of family members during official photographs is not accidental, but carefully arranged to reinforce hierarchy. When greeting foreign leaders, heirs must follow protocols that balance diplomatic courtesy with the dignity of the crown. These practices are rehearsed repeatedly, often long before an heir participates in major state events. Palace advisors ensure that by the time a royal stands beside heads of government or monarchs from other nations, every gesture appears effortless. Behind that apparent ease lies extensive preparation, yet the discipline of presentation extends beyond visible behavior. It also reaches deeply into how royal heirs manage their personal relationships, an area where the monarchy has historically exercised remarkable influence. Marriage within royal circles has never been considered purely private. For centuries, the unions of royal heirs carried diplomatic, political, and religious consequences. While modern monarchies have relaxed many of these expectations, one rule remains firmly embedded in constitutional practice. Royal heirs must obtain the sovereign's approval before marrying. This requirement is rooted in British law and tradition. The purpose is not to control personal happiness, but to protect the monarchy from alliances that might damage its public standing or constitutional neutrality. A marriage that introduces political controversy or public scandal can affect not only the heir, but the reputation of the crown itself. Within palace circles, potential partners are quietly assessed long before any formal approval is requested. Advisors consider background, public perception, and the ability to withstand the relentless scrutiny that accompanies royal life. If concerns arise, they are addressed privately. Conversations between the sovereign, senior family members, and trusted advisors often take place well before the public becomes aware of a relationship. In most cases, these discussions remain discreet. But the underlying message to royal heirs is unmistakable. Personal relationships cannot be separated from institutional responsibility. As heirs mature into adulthood, another layer of discipline emerges: control over financial independence. To outside observers, the lives of royal heirs appear surrounded by extraordinary privilege. Palaces, staff, and public visibility suggest unlimited personal freedom. The reality is far more structured. Royal finances are closely regulated through trusts, estates, and parliamentary arrangements. Heirs do not possess unrestricted control over wealth in the way private citizens might. Much of the funding associated with royal duties is tied to official responsibilities rather than personal lifestyle. This financial structure serves an important purpose. It ensures that the monarchy remains accountable to the public and to Parliament. Royal heirs must learn to navigate the delicate balance between private life and public funding. Private secretaries and financial advisors guide heirs through this system carefully. They learn early that every expense connected to their public role may be examined, questioned, and reported. Mismanagement of finances can produce not only personal embarrassment, but institutional damage. In an era of constant media scrutiny, perceptions of extravagance can quickly erode public support for the monarchy. For this reason, financial discipline becomes another quiet but powerful rule shaping the lives of future sovereigns. Yet even these rules, appearance, protocol, marriage approval, and financial control, still operate largely within the realm of social and reputational expectations. They shape how royal heirs behave and how they are perceived. As heirs approach the center of royal authority, however, the rules begin to shift. they become less about presentation and more about power. One of the most carefully guarded expectations concerns political proximity. Royal heirs must spend years preparing to interact with government without ever appearing to influence it. The sovereign's weekly audiences with the Prime Minister are among the most enduring traditions of the British constitutional system. During these meetings, the monarch offers counsel, receives information, and remains politically neutral. Future monarchs must learn this balance long before they inherit the throne. Heirs are gradually introduced to state briefings, constitutional conventions, and diplomatic responsibilities. They observe how the sovereign communicates with government leaders, how sensitive information is handled, and how neutrality is preserved even in moments of political tension. But there is a strict boundary. Royal heirs may listen. They may learn, yet they must never appear to participate in political decision-making. Crossing that boundary would challenge the constitutional principle that keeps the monarchy above politics. And once that neutrality is questioned, restoring it becomes extraordinarily difficult. It is here, within these upper layers of preparation, that the true weight of the royal code begins to reveal itself. Because the most powerful rule governing royal heirs is not about clothing, education, or even marriage. It is about understanding that the crown itself is not personal property. It is an institution, one that must survive its heirs. This final principle shapes every stage of a royal heir's preparation, yet it is rarely discussed openly. The crown, despite its symbolism and prestige, does not belong to the individual who wears it. It belongs to the institution of the monarchy itself, sustained through law, tradition, and public consent. For a future sovereign, this understanding becomes the most important discipline of all. From the moment an heir approaches adulthood, palace advisors begin reinforcing a subtle but essential reality. Personal ambition must never compete with institutional continuity. Unlike elected leaders, who enter office through political campaigns and personal platforms, royal heirs inherit authority through a system that values restraint above assertion. In practical terms, this means that heirs must learn to suppress the instinct to define the monarchy according to their own preferences. The institution moves slowly, guided by precedent and constitutional boundaries. A monarch who attempts to impose dramatic personal change risks destabilizing the delicate balance that has allowed the crown to endure through centuries of political transformation. Senior members of the royal household play a significant role in transmitting this philosophy. Private secretaries, constitutional experts, and experienced courtiers act as guardians of institutional memory. Many of them have served multiple sovereigns, giving them a perspective that extends beyond any single reign. Through briefings, historical studies, and private discussions, heirs are exposed to the successes and failures of previous monarchs. They learn how moments of personal misjudgment have in the past triggered constitutional tension or public criticism. Equally, they study how restraint, patience, and adherence to tradition have strengthened the monarchy during times of uncertainty. These lessons are not delivered as lectures on theory, they are embedded in the daily routines of royal life. The order of ceremonies, the language used in official statements, the quiet consultations with government ministers, each practice reinforces the idea that the monarch serves as steward rather than owner of the crown. For many heirs, this adjustment requires considerable discipline. The modern world celebrates individuality and personal expression. Public figures are often encouraged to cultivate distinctive identities, to promote personal views, and to lead through visible influence. The monarchy operates according to a different logic. Its authority rests partly on continuity. A sovereign may guide the tone of a reign, but the essential structure of the institution must remain recognizable from one generation to the next. When royal heirs fully grasp this principle, their role begins to change. Preparation gives way to guardianship. One of the clearest demonstrations of this transition occurs during the gradual transfer of responsibility from the reigning monarch to the heir. In many constitutional monarchies, the heir begins assuming a growing share of ceremonial and representational duties years before the throne becomes vacant. This process serves two purposes. It introduces the heir to the practical workload of monarchy, and it allows the public to become accustomed to the future sovereign in a leadership role. Official visits, diplomatic receptions, and charitable patronages increasingly fall under the heir's direction. Yet even during this stage, restraint remains essential. An heir must represent the crown without appearing to overshadow the reigning monarch. Public attention must continue to centre on the sovereign who currently holds authority. Navigating this balance requires careful coordination between palace officials, communications advisors, and the royal household itself. In many ways, this period becomes the final test of the royal code. By this stage, an heir has spent decades living within the framework of rules that began in childhood. Education, travel precautions, speech discipline, marriage approval, financial accountability, public protocol, and political neutrality, all of these expectations converge as the heir moves closer to the throne. The purpose of this long preparation becomes clear only at the end of the process. A monarch cannot learn the responsibilities of sovereignty after accession. The role must already be internalized. When the moment of succession arrives, there is no transition period in the constitutional sense. The crown passes immediately from one sovereign to the next. The phrase often repeated within royal circles captures the reality succinctly: "The king is dead, long live the king." Continuity must be instantaneous. This is why the rules governing royal heirs are so extensive and so carefully maintained. They exist to ensure that when the crown changes hands, the institution does not falter. Advisors remain in place, government continues its work, public life proceeds without interruption. The new monarch steps into a role that has already been rehearsed across a lifetime. Observers sometimes imagine royal preparation as a matter of privilege, elite education, ceremonial training, and public visibility. Those elements certainly exist. Yet the deeper reality is one of discipline and constraint. Royal heirs grow up knowing that many ordinary freedoms will never fully belong to them. Their careers cannot be chosen freely. Their political opinions must remain private. Even their family relationships must be considered within the context of public responsibility. These limitations form the quiet price of succession. What they receive in return is not merely status, but stewardship of an institution that represents continuity for an entire nation. For supporters of monarchy, that continuity provides stability in a political world often defined by rapid change. For critics, it raises enduring questions about inherited authority in a democratic age. Yet, regardless of perspective, one fact remains constant. The crown does not rest on ceremony alone. It rests on preparation. Years of preparation guided by a code that begins long before the throne is ever within reach. And by the time a royal heir finally wears the crown, the most important rule has already been learned. The monarch is not the center of the institution. The institution is the center of the monarch.